Hello, everybody. This is Fernando for the latest Godzilla podcast. I can't believe I almost forgot about this anniversary today. I forget about these things sometimes. I'm a guy. That's usually the thing with guys. We tend to forget some important dates. But in this case, this date 30 years ago was a very important date. We're talking about December 15th, 1984. In the world of Godzilla, this was the release of the Return of Godzilla in Japan, what is widely considered one of the most influential Godzilla films within the Godzilla franchise. Of course, there would be the subsequent US release, Godzilla 1985, but the anniversary for that is not until next year, around August 23rd or so. But in this case, December 15th, 1984, 30 years ago today, the Return of Godzilla was released in Japan, and it was the film that introduced me to the world of Godzilla. Like many others out there who are of my generation, not the original Godzilla, but this film was the one that introduced us to Godzilla, because this was the film that, as kids growing up, this was the one that was showcased on various TV channels, and in some cases had a little cult popularity when it came to the release on VHS. And so this was the film that, for many of us, this is how we got into the Godzilla world and haven't left since. So very influential film. To this day, it remains a milestone within the Godzilla franchise, and alas, it still remains the only film, the absolute only film now that has not been released in the US either on DVD or Blu-ray. But I'm going to talk about another video about the potential of it being released sometime soon, so be on the lookout for that. But yes, happy 30th anniversary, The Return of Godzilla. This was the film that again marked so much important stuff within the Godzilla franchise. First of all, we had the return of Godzilla in a nightmarish mode. Gone were the days of him doing high kicks and flying through the air with his breath and high-fiving other team members. No, this was the film that reintroduced him as the nuclear monster that he was, and also introduced other new items such as him, taking on Super X, a machine that would go on to be various incarnations, the Super X2, the Super X3, and so forth. So this was a introduction of the first model that would take on later incarnations later on. Also, we were introduced to various ideas within Godzilla himself, such as the ability for him to thrive on nuclear energy, in fact, actually seek it out. There were multiple scenes where he was trying to destroy nuclear plants to reach them. Also introduced was the idea that lightning could revive Godzilla, almost as a form of, let's say, an emergency shock, the kind of stuff that's used whenever someone is, say, in a hospital and they're trying to resuscitate them. Well, in this case, we had Godzilla be resuscitated by lightning, so a very powerful concept there. Also, we even had, it's a small idea, but still quite powerful, we had the idea of the lice, or in this case the louse, that are tied to Godzilla, animals, parasites of sorts that thrive from the radioactivity of Godzilla himself. And we were introduced to that world, which in some cases would influence down to the most recent movie, that Cloverfield movie, which had those lice, those parasitic, whatever those things were, coming down off of Clover. Again, very similar to what happened with Godzilla in the Return of Godzilla film. Very powerful film. Lots of stuff that came about from it that to this day are still around. In fact, to mark the anniversary, there is a very cool video that has just been released the other day. It's from ACTV Japan, and what they've done is they've done an interview with one of the makers within the Return of Godzilla film, and this was the special effects director, a guy by the name of Teruyoshi Nakano. It's about 13 minutes long, but it is very good stuff. He talks about how he came about with several designs of Godzilla, how those ideas came about, and he wanted to express, to give you an idea, he wanted to express Godzilla in a very sorrowful manner. He just didn't want it to be your standard puppet. He said he wanted it to truly represent an animal, and the way he expressed it was having the motion, the walk of Godzilla. When one thinks about it, it's actually quite memorable within the film. He's doing a very particular key shuffle of sorts that looks animalistic, like he's holding back power of some sort. Also, there was the down to the design of his shoulders. He said he wanted to create shoulders that had a slender line because he wanted to ensure that anything involving any glance from any angle of Godzilla, he would look sorrowful. This also tied into seeing the whites within the eyes of Godzilla. He said that was his idea, like that was his favorite set of eyes. He wanted to be sure that even though Godzilla again was like a nuclear nightmare of sorts, when you looked him in the eyes, you could still see some kind of sympathy, some kind of sorrow, because the eyes looked more human-like. He was also the one that came up with the idea of ensuring that anytime Godzilla roared, it wasn't just a standard mouth opening up and down. Instead, it was the very memorable detail that we saw within the film where every time a Godzilla roared, his mouth would stretch back, like the lips would stretch back, so that way it could expose more of his teeth and then more of his throat, and then that way it would look more realistic. Also, the video itself contains some pretty kick-ass behind the scenes photos of the film, crystal clear stuff too. So again, check it out when you have a chance. I have the link for it below here. So again, happy 30th anniversary, the return of Godzilla. Congratulations on this anniversary. We can only hope that we have this film finally released sometime soon in the US, and I'll talk about that within another video. Alright, thanks again everybody. Take care. Bye.